Welcome to a new episode of the International Comics Collective, only on UCPN. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the International Comics Collective. I am your host, Omega, as usual, and I'm hanging out with my international buddies. First, Mr. Dave Elliot. What's up, brother?
Hello, old chap. Glad to be here.
I'm an old chap now, man. I feel I need to get one of those Kango hats. and of course, our German brother from Team CC, and of course, the boss on Twitterverse here when it comes to comic book chat, Mr. Chris Buse. What's up, bro?
Hi, how are you tonight? I'm excellent, and guys and girls, tonight it's Avengers. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. So listen, we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame, how it's going to change the game, how it led to that game. I want to warn you now that this will have spoilers, but according to the Russo brothers at the time when this is released, it's okay. All right? So, folks, get ready for a hell of a ride because we were going to talk about something completely different. And then Dave saw Endgame. And man, that changed the game for this pod. So, with that, I now leave the floor to Senor Elliot to get into this awesome discussion.
Well, thank you very much, sir. It was, for me, I was seeing Endgame. It wasn't so much that, it was kind of the Endgame of the Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was seeing them doing something which we hadn't seen before, like even the DC movies, like everything was based on what has come before. Everything was based on the comics.
Yes.
And while all the characters were there, like Avengers Endgame did a couple of things that was like, oh wow, you haven't just copied the comics, you've actually gone past them. You've done things that the comics haven't done in very dramatic circumstances. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, death of Iron Man. Spoiler alert, Captain America is an old man now. The comics never did that. They've had stories where we've thought someone was dead and, they've come back. But they definitively, those characters are gone. And not to say there won't be another person wearing a suit of armor in the Marvel Universe, and we know there's someone else going to be carrying Captain America's shield.
Yeah.
But Steve Rogers and Tony Stark are gone.
Yeah, man, the OGs.
Yeah.
Man.
But let's not forget Black Widow.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. God, yes.
Man, yeah, what a sacrifice she did. My God. I mean, hair stood, man, because, Ronan and her, that scene, and, and fighting to see who's going to be the sacrifice, if you will. I mean, amazing.
Well, you knew as soon as we knew what stone they were going for. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, which one of them is going to? Like, which one's going to die?
Yeah.
You knew as soon as they arrived, it was like, oh, they're going after that. The Soul Stone? Man, that's it. Okay, which one's gone?
Yeah, powerful
I must say though, I actually thought what would have resonated much stronger is if it was Black Widow and the Hulk.
Interesting. Huh? Interesting.
Because we never got to see that relationship thing, the Bruce Banner and Natasha sort of, kind of take any sort of shape, but.
Yeah, but was that still ongoing? Because it was heavily implied that she had something going on with Captain America at that time.
No, I think that there was that whole, she was the one who could calm Bruce Banner. There was clearly something was going to go on, and Bruce ran away. Like Bruce just ran off. It was just he couldn't deal with it. It was almost like couldn't deal with it. And I felt we needed that to be resolved, and I didn't think we really did. Which kind of made it real in a way that that wasn't, sometimes relationships do just kind of, you think it's going to happen and it just doesn't quite happen, and everyone kind of awkward bumbles through it and hopes that everyone sort of gets over it.
Yeah, right.
But I digress. See, the reason I wanted to talk about Avengers Endgame was a whole historical aspect, because there's so much going on, and there's so much has gone on in the industry that, Endgame is really a very fitting tribute to the lives and work of Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Stan Lee.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
They've all left us. They've all left us now, and I came away with it going, this cast of characters, this creative force that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is based on, we're not going to see its like again. Like that, the output of those three in the 1960s in comics, it's just not going to happen again. We're not.
Absolutely.
It was lightning in a bottle, whatever it was. It was an anomaly. It was a combination of different forces of what was going on in the industry, what people wanted at the time, and that's gone. That's we're not going to see that. At least we're not going to.
I think one to just jump in. I think a strong aspect of that is the connectiveness. And because very early on, Stan, maybe Jack too, they connected the characters. They showed us they live in the same world. Spider-Man could pop up in the Fantastic Four or the Avengers. And this is the same thing the the MCU has been doing over the last 10, 11 years. And I think that's why the movie so strongly resonated. Because you only saw a character like Doctor Strange for 3 minutes in this movie, but you knew he was part of this universe. And this is the groundwork they laid so perfectly right from the first Iron Man on. And this is why you felt the loss of Black Widow. You felt the loss of Iron Man. Because he was not a standalone character who died in a movie. We have seen that many times before. But he was part of an ongoing universe. He had a place in that universe. And now this place is empty and needs to be filled again.
Yeah, and here's the other comparison that I'll make to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Comics in the very early 1960s. One of the reasons that they used to have these little brief crossovers, or just have the presence of a character in a comic book, was the frequency of comics were different. Some of them were bi-monthly. Marvel was just a small line at the time.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to. They were not allowed to. They couldn't expand because they had their competition being the distribution, which is very, very ironic, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's why it worked. I think those comics worked because of it was a limited line.
Mm-hmm.
There was, you knew that, like, okay, well, this particular title is a skip month book. Well, let's have that character show up in another book, even if it's just briefly, in someone else's title. Like when Spider-Man showed up in the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah.
And when the Fantastic Four showed up in Spider-Man, it was very reflective. Like you even went as far as like Steve Ditko inking Jack Kirby, Spider-Man and Jack Kirby in the Fantastic Four.
Amazing.
The amazing Spider-Man cover with the first appearance of Fantastic Four was had Kirby pencils as well as but Ditko inks. So you have it's this connectivity, and here I think is where Stan Lee really comes into play. I think one of the things that he did was he really made the connectivity between all the books. He was the one who really decided that I'm going to focus on a universe because I'm the guy scripting all of these. So I'm going to try and make them feel all one.
Gotcha.
And it really worked.
I think what also worked was that Stan had these asides in the copy where he talked directly to the reader. Whenever the Hulk showed up, he would say, well, basically, this is going on in the Hulk magazine. Here's a panel. You see what Hulk is doing, but check out Hulk's magazine, and this is going on. And he talked directly to the readers. And he told them, okay, if you want to learn more, grab an issue of the Hulk.
Yeah.
But he was not pushing it. You didn't need to get that issue. That was not part of the story you were reading. But Stan made you interested in the world and what these characters were up to. And I think that's a very strong aspect of Stan's writing at that time.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they had Twitterverse back then, and with this brand new world building in comics?
Interesting.
It would have been, yeah. I mean,
Stan would have had them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stan would have had the most characters, the most followers of anybody, because that was his specialty. His specialty would have been on Twitter 24/7. He would have out-tweeted Donald Trump, you know.
I was just thinking about that. Oh man, perfect analogy. Absolutely, I believe that. I mean, yeah, these men were extreme creative forces in a time where it was needed. And I mean, comics were lackluster right before, they came in with this Spider-Man idea and this connected universe, like you said. Everything got safe and boring. And these guys together created something exciting for the time. Absolutely agreed. And it's the same thing that, the MCU has done. It's created that very same excitement.
Well, it's like, it's one of the things that I think I'll bring in, and I'll talk about Pixar for a second, because one of the things that I think Pixar, one of the things they connected that made them their movies really connect, whereas a lot of other Disney films and a lot of animation hadn't really been clicking at that time, was they realized that, okay, well, this is a kids movie, but they also realized that the kids weren't the only ones there. The parents were going to be bringing their kids. Mm-hmm. And if you could make the parents laugh just as much as the kids, everyone's happy. They're going to play their DVDs more, because the parent knows, oh, I like that too. So
it's basically these movies need to be 4-quarter movies, otherwise they cannot justify the budgets. And I think that's what changed with the MCU. That changed with Iron Man. What? Because I remember when Blade came out, that was a movie that was popular, but it was mostly popular in a certain segment of the people.
Yeah.
And when the first Iron Man came out, everybody said, "Oh, this is not going to be that big." They understood you need to make it also interesting for the people older than 26, and you need to make it interesting for women as well. And I think that is basically what Robert Downey Jr. achieved, because he was so charismatic carrying that movie. He made that movie. That's not taking away from Jon Favreau's excellent direction for the first movie. And it was very fitting to have him there in the send-off for Tony Stark with Tony's daughter there. That was excellent. But it was Robert Downey Jr. who translated that character to a modern audience, but an audience everybody could enjoy. And I think that's where it all started.
Yeah. I mean, and also if you go back and look at the first few years of Marvel Comics in the 1960s, the level of writing and the approach, I'm not saying that the DC comics of the time and the other comics at the time weren't well written. They were. But what the difference was that the Marvel comics, I felt they had a 2-level approach to them. The visually, as you look through it, it was, for a kid, was going like, wow, this is fantastic, this is amazing. But Stan's dialogue took it up a notch. He built upon the visuals, and in the scripts, he would touch on things that added a little bit more social relevance, maybe some stuff that he'd picked up in the artwork, some notes. Jack Kirby would always basically write the script around in the borders of the panels of the pages he sent in. But it was the level of maturity and the approach. I think that was great. They weren't writing above the audience. They were writing for an audience and made them think a little bit harder.
Yeah, agreed. That's the word I was gonna say. Mature. That's the difference between them and DC at the time. That maturity.
Yeah, and it was mature, not in a Vertigo style mature readers like, oh, it's more adult. It wasn't. They just treated them with more respect.
Absolutely, that's key. The respect of the character and the people reading and looking through the book.
Exactly.
I think what Stan understood and what DC didn't understand at that time was basically he made the deliberate decision to base all his characters in a real city, New York, and to have people around, passengers on the street, in the cars, or pedestrians on the streets who reacted to these characters. The FF became celebrities, and he basically designed his world as a world where people would react to these superheroes. And you don't see that in a DC comic at that time. You never see somebody, you see guys, oh, there's a plane, oh no, it's Superman. But there's never any discussion about, oh, Superman is a celebrity at that time. Whereas the Fantastic Four are seen as celebrities, and people write about them in magazines. You see that in the books. And that's quite interesting, because Stan imagined a world like ours, how we would react to these characters if these characters were real. And that's quite interesting.
And not only that, we've, in the case of both the Fantastic Four and with Spider-Man, we saw what happens when sometimes you've got money, sometimes you don't. The Fantastic Four had lost their fortune and needed the Submariner. He gave them the money, and by sort of supposedly making a movie about them to give them their Baxter Building back. We've seen Spider-Man out on his luck, like living in, tiny, almost like a squat. He's making furniture out of literally cardboard boxes and, those wire reels that from construction managers.
That's not too far from the truth nowadays, because New York is so expensive. I mean, that's probably the best. I see a lot of people doing that today still.
Yeah. Well, I think you're always going to have that, like that trap of poverty and they were, they didn't shy away from it. It was, you look at, even like go back and look at Daredevil's origin with, his, battling Murdoch he was putting his life on the line. He was poor. He was trying to put money on the table, food on the table for his kid. Yeah, everything went into, giving his kid the best education he possibly can, and it cost him his life. And they didn't have the luxuries of being a billionaire with a massive cave under your mansion. They didn't have a giant fortress in the Antarctica they could fly off to with,
or a kingdom under the sea.
Exactly. It was
or coming back to Twitter. I mean, you had a character which was also very new at that time in Jonah Jameson, who hated the hero and who influenced public opinion against the hero. Something like that never happened in DC, as far as I know. You had it in the 70s when there were politicians who tried to outlaw the Batman and stuff like that. But that was in the 70s. But in the 60s, there was no character in DC that was hated by the public, or that was supposedly hated by the public, as the public was influenced by a guy in the media who was peddling quote-unquote fake news about this hero. Quite interesting.
Yeah, right. The fake news angle that still exists today, apparently.
Well, that's what I've heard.
All right, so let's get a bit into an iconic scene here. And I want to see, because the movie has its emotional sequences, of course, right? But it also has those geek out.
I cried a lot.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, one of my podcasters, Josh, the random dude, saw it last night, and he was supposed to edit something for me, and he says, I was too emotionally drained after this movie. I have to do it in the morning. You could have.
I fully understand that. I've seen it 3 times, and it still works. It still works. It keeps getting better. It keeps getting better, actually.
You're going to keep finding new things to geek out about, because one of my crazy geek out moments was when Cap finally picked up that hammer.
Well, everybody in my movie theater was cheering at that time. And that was in Germany. People resonated strongly to that. People shouted, "Yay!" There was really energy in the movie. It was amazing.
It was that iconic scene, and just Thor, his character in the movie, we got to get into as well, which was, I believe, he was a highlight in the movie with his comedic timing, if you will.
Yeah, but there's something off with that. We can talk about that.
Well, I love the fact that Chris Hemsworth, having for all these movies been this super buff guy, and in this last movie, it's like he's playing the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Like, he's got the sunglasses, he's got the hair, he's got the
stomach,
the stomach, everything. I'm just thinking, like, wow, yeah, it's like the Big Lebowski can pick up Mjolnir. It's like, wow. I just love that bit where the Thor and Captain America, they both catch the hammers, but they catch each other's hammers and swap.
Yeah. He's like, no, I want that one.
Yeah, you have the little one.
Yeah, that was great.
It was great too when this older Thor went back to Asgard, and he just tried, after losing his hammer, he tried to see if he could get it, and he goes, "I'm still worthy," That was also awesome. Again, I think he was a true highlight in the film.
I think what resonated strongly with me was that they were willing, and these major stars, I mean, these are huge stars now, they were willing to show them, to be shown down, almost ugly and beaten. And I mean, that was quite interesting. And they didn't even shy away from, for instance, if you saw how Black Widow's hair changed. Oh, yeah. She didn't have the full red hair. There was still the white there that started to grow out. It was quite interesting that they were willing to do that. They were not glamorous heroes. They were human people. And that was quite interesting.
Well, with the emotion that Natasha showed when she was having that call with everyone, and everyone's appearing on hologram. She's talking, and she's made herself a peanut butter sandwich, and she's like, she's just barely containing her pain, and they're trying to deal with everything, and it's that great line. In fact, when Captain America, when Steve Rogers was talking about, he'd been doing a therapy session and he'd been telling everyone to move on, and here he is being the person who can't. He, more than anyone, he can't move on.
Yeah, that was deep.
And that paid off with the line by Thanos at the end when he talked about, he's like, clearly he said, like, I thought you guys would understand. I thought you would be happy that I've taken away half the population. There is now enough resources for you all. I can see you'll never be happy. So therefore, I'm just going to obliterate you all.
Yeah. I mean, Thanos' mindset is kind of crazy. Josh Brolin did an amazing job as Thanos, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, when he came to bring it to the Avengers, holy smokes, what a scene.
But but this is the thing. It's like, and maybe like this goes more as a reflection on Infinity War, in that for the first time, I've seen a genuinely, like, I could see what Thanos was on about. Like, no, in no way could I justify what he did and why he did, and how he did it. But his motivations, you could understand them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he didn't deem himself evil. He's trying to help, but it's just, wow, you're hurting half the universe at the same time, dude.
Yeah, it's that thing of one of the things he knew, and I think that this is where maybe I think this is one of the things where I think the movie kind of got wrong. Like, there's those scenes where you see the empty baseball grounds, and like, 5 years on, and there's no one's playing baseball. I don't believe it. I think that if you lose half the population of the planet, when you think about it, well, that's not it. It looks as though New York lost like 90% of the people, because I think within 5 years, yes, people are going to go back to playing. They're going to play football. They're going to play baseball.
Yeah.
They're
It takes
going to go
healing.
to the movies. People will be making movies. People will be making TV shows. They're going to do that because that's what people need. Like people need somewhere to go. They need to go with people. They need to hang out with people.
Life goes on.
It does, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't in any way. It's not forgetting anybody. But I don't think that's one of the things about the human race. I think is that we, as a collective, we may on an individual level, we may allow ourselves to sink down and not get over something, but collectively, we do. We always move forward. We do move on, even though it's with a heavy heart. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing that in Avengers I thought kind of felt like, no, it's almost like with Thanos when he went, he lost 70% of the population or 80% because there seemed way too few people.
See, obviously Thanos' mistake was that when he did that snap, he should have also wiped everybody's memories of who he had banished. And everything, he would have won. I'm sorry. I like
interesting. Interesting idea. But I think how I took the scene in New York was basically that what would happen is that people would change, the society would change dramatically. And my thinking was that why would you want to live in a city like New York if there was nothing there anymore, if there were bad memories? Maybe people moved to the countryside. They started a new kind of society, some maybe. And that's how I explained those things.
But I don't think that there was a big enough loss in people because, I think about it. If half the population of the planet disappeared, that would take us back to the population levels of the planet in the early 1960s.
Yeah, but the system is, but the system is different. If you think about,
the system is different, but the point is, we all still make money. We all still exist.
Yeah, but hang on a second. I have this all the time in my consulting business in companies. When you look at companies these days, at the headcount, what they're doing is they try to shrink the headcount down and down. What they ask their employees to do is, okay, we have a contract for 8 hours, 9 hours, but we have to reduce costs. So now work 9, 10 hours. You can take a day off maybe. So everybody is stretched very thinly. And when you now take out half the employees of any given company, the companies will collapse completely. There is no, okay, we're going back to the 60s. The organizational structures of companies, think of any major company, take out half the workforce across the board. These companies would collapse immediately. The whole economy collapse immediately.
I don't know if I disagree. I think I might disagree with you a little bit because I think some companies deliberately have they have more employees, but each of them working less hours, because by working less hours, they keep them under a threshold where they don't have to give them benefits and things like that.
That's also true. That's also true. That's in certain areas, right? That's true as well.
Yeah, particularly in America and places like England, that's very much the case. So 0-hour contracts. It's like, yes, you've got the job, but you might only work 3 hours that month.
You see, people had Thanos just wipe people's minds, right? Everybody would have had a full-time job with benefits.
I think if he snapped his fingers and got rid of every politician and all the corporate, just got rid of shareholders in companies, I think that would have helped a lot.
Oh man, all he had to do was have a meeting with us. What do you guys want gone? And I'll get rid of that. And if in a year I don't see any changes, half of everything is gone.
Yeah,
I would have given. I don't know. My villainy. I would have had a heart. I'll give them a chance.
Yeah.
All right. So, and seeing this, obviously, this is a whole this whole Infinity, or rather 22 film series in the Marvel Review that ended with the Phase 3. How well do you think it was done when you look back onto the books themselves, the original storyline?
I think I think the irony is, I was thinking about that. The irony is there, if you can divide the Silver Age of Marvel into 4 phases. And so these are the 4 phases of Marvel, if you will, and of the MCU as well. Basically, you have the building phase. That's the first phase, like this Fantastic Four #1, which is in the MCU, the first Iron Man movie. And then in the second phase, which is also the Marvel Phase 2, they try to create this connected world. And you see that also in the Marvel comics. You see that when the FF hit issue 2022, you see more the Hulk coming in, you see more the X-Men coming in, and you see these connected stories where they share a book with these characters. And I think the weakest phase of the 3 Marvel MCU phases so far is the second phase, where they try to build this connectiveness stronger and push that more. And I think all, except for the Captain America movies, all the second Marvel phase, MCU Phase 2 movies, they suffer from that extremely.
Yeah, I kind of agree. In the same way that the comics also suffered from with crossovers. So, it's that you kind of felt that, 80% of this movie is the story, and then you're putting 20 to 30% of connective tissue in that has to link to other films, both previous and movies to come. You're setting up things for other movies. But I think overall, as you step back and look at it, Kevin Feige, who basically oversaw the entire thing, is a genius.
Absolutely.
But it was his love of comics first that allowed him to give this vision to take place, because he loved the comics, he loved the movies, and he knew what to take from the comics to put into the movies and what to leave out.
Do you think, fellas, that is a very important element for a director or executive producer, that's making a comic book film, for them to be a fan first?
I think so. I think you have to understand the source material and also what people like about it, because what's the purpose? I think, I know a lot of friends who, like, most people I know like the Marvel movies. And if you're a fan of Marvel and you've seen the movies, you like them. You might go, those are things I wish they do, but like if I said like thumbs up or thumbs down, there's still thumbs up. Yeah. And I don't think other things can say the same.
I think what you need to be is that you need to respect the stories, and I think that is the biggest mistake a lot of these quote-unquote creators that write screenplays or direct movies make. The first thing you hear, and then it's going to be off the tracks, is they say, oh yeah, there's the comic stories, but we want to tell a different story. And that's always the biggest mistake these people make. And I think what Kevin Feige understood was basically to tell the guys, we want to build this shared universe. You can do your own movie, but within this shared universe, you need to respect these characters and these storylines. And I find it so interesting, if I go back and should name my 4 favorite MCU movies so far, they would all be the Russos. All the 4 movies the Russos did are my 4 favorite Marvel movies. And they all are written by the same guys as well, Marcus and McFeely. And what I found so interesting is after the second Captain America movie, the Winter Soldier movie, their plan for the next Captain America movie was this storyline where they reintroduced the Cap from the 1950s as a separate character. You remove the one from the comics. I believe Engelhardt was the one who wrote that. And basically, that was the idea, to introduce the Cap of the 1950s. And I was really reminded of that when we had the scene where Captain America was fighting Captain America in this movie now, in Endgame. You had Captain America fighting Captain America. That was right out of the comics. And they reused their old idea to say, okay, that was our idea for the third movie. And this idea that they pitched this at this third Captain America movie shows their deep love for these storylines. They were not like, okay, there's 40, 50 years of Captain America comics, or 60 years even.
Yeah.
Let's throw all of that out of the window. We write a completely different story. No, they wanted to go with these old storylines and adapt them for the cinematic universe. And I think that's what you need to do.
But I think they may go that direction because obviously, as Dave mentioned earlier, we get towards the end an old Captain America. So who's to say that they didn't have these adventures, in his youth that we're not aware of, Well,
the Russo brothers have said that the Captain America, the old Captain America we see at the beginning, hasn't spent his life in the same past as.
No, well, he's skinnier. He's not as big.
No. He's the same Captain America, but what he did is by changing the past, he ended up in a different reality. So that Captain America you see at the end, he came back to his original reality just to hand over the shield at the end because he knew he had to be back there to hand over the shield.
Gotcha. And how did you feel about that handover of the shield? And do you think it went to the appropriate character?
There was a moment where I actually thought that, why didn't he give it to Bucky? But I think that if you go back and you look at, I remember when Captain America first met Sam Wilson and what Sam Wilson was doing. And here's someone I felt like if you go back and revisit that scene again, it kind of, you understand how even at that time, you knew that Steve had met someone who was like, no, you're going to be my friend. We're going to I'm going to come to you when I need you because that's the sort of person you are. And I'm drawn to you because you're just the right person, the best person. And so I think that he did make the right call at the end.
Yeah, I agree.
I think also the idea was basically that Bucky is broken. He's a broken character. And Captain America needs to be wholesome. And he needs to be an idol. He needs to stand for what is right. And Bucky's too conflicted for that. Brubaker did this very long arc where he redeemed Bucky, where he had to go to a prison in Russia for his sins, quote unquote. And they couldn't do that in the MCU. That's too complicated. So they needed a fresh start as a character.
And also the fact is, whether it's, he was brainwashed or not, he killed Tony Stark's father.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that, I don't think that Steve could, even if he felt like he deserved it, he would, I think he would honor Tony Stark's memory by not giving him the shield.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great scene, and I dug it a lot because, again, going back into the comic books and when Sam was introduced and then storylines that came, later because the book was renamed, Captain America and Falcon for a bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
for a long time, it was actually for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, so that was his sidekick, his friend, his compadre, if you will. So you know what? He definitely did merit it, and I'm happy that the movie acknowledged that, gave that to him, and I can't wait to see a Captain Falcon movie.
Well, it's funny. Here's the thing. The way you just described it as sidekick, I never saw Captain America and the Falcon as the same way as Batman and Robin. I never saw Falcon as being a sidekick. I just saw Falcon having his name second purely because Captain America was the better known character.
Gotcha. But I mean, because they work together,
Oh yeah, but I never saw Falcon. I mean, I know somewhat people like villains might have kind of antagonized him by saying, "Oh, so it's Cap's sidekick," but I never saw it. I never saw it that way. I always saw the Falcon.
He was his own character that side by side.
Absolutely. They also had his own supporting characters and everything. It was also his story in the books.
Yeah.
So definitely, and I want to go back to something that Chris said. Yeah, if I had a choice, the Russo's movies are all my favorite too. We're on the same page, bro.
Good.
Well, here's the thing, and like I would say that I think as far as all the movies so far, the one movie, I think there's only been maybe two of the movies that you can separate out and say, these could be standalone movies. These could be movies that you could, if you didn't have access to all the other movies, you could still watch these two movies and be happy. Like they still feel kind of, you could make about 2 minutes of cuts and they'd be completely self-contained. And one is Guardians of the Galaxy and the other one is Black Panther. Every other one it's kind of, when we've had previous conversations about what I've said about what I feel would make a good comic is something where you pick up a comic, like 80% of it is a solid story, is great, and the other 10-20% is connective tissue. It's
filler.
Kind of it's not filler. It's the after effects of the previous story. Like it's resonating. You get this echo of the previous story had an effect.
Yeah.
And so we need to see that. And then it's the setup for the next story. And I think that's how the Marvel Universe have treated all their movies. So, but Guardians of the Galaxy to me and Black Panther could be separated out and could be their own things.
Yeah,
I would add Doctor Strange to that as well.
Yeah, actually, possibly even Ant-Man. But I think
Ant-Man being the hero of this film for me, boy.
Yeah, he was. I have said that on Twitter many times. I'm not a big Paul Rudd fan, but that movie made me like Paul Rudd. He gave an excellent performance, and so did Karen Gill. I think these two really, really showed in that movie. They were both excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie has Thor still with them.
It looks like he's gonna join them the way you look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I love that little joke he had. He goes, "As Guardians of the Galaxy."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's the comic. It actually happened, which is great. I mean, what do you think now? Now that these 22 films, 3 phases is over, right? We've lost 2 of the legendary members, if you will. In the cast, we've seen a new member step up. We've seen possibilities of the next person in the armor. Where are we going? Where is MCU going? And what would you like to see happen?
Well, I would like to see the Eternals, because the third Thor movie, they showed that the Kirby concepts can work very nicely. And I would build on that, and I would bring the cosmic element down to Earth, and that's the Eternals.
Yeah, I think that I'd like to see. I think they're going to give it some time, but I'd like to also see the MCU version of the Inhumans.
Oh
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, they attempted. That TV show was horrible. Black Bolt looked like he was smelling a fart all the time. The way he looked. It was just a badly done show. I mean, they even tried to put it out the first 2 episodes in the movie theater. It didn't work out. It bombed. They put too much emphasis on it, and it's unfortunate. It's a great cast of characters. Just it wasn't done right.
But I think that the like I think my favorite in Human story is the one where Black Bolt loses his memory and he's in New York. It's when you move. It's when you it's the Kirby Neil Adams story.
Exactly, Neil Adams.
What's that?
That's the Neil Adams one, the short Neil Adams one.
Yeah, well, it was the Kirby started that story and it was finished by Neil Adams.
Right.
But it was that where it's bringing the Inhumans into our world. It's that sort of level. And when they had like Johnny Storm dating Crystal, it was all of that was great. It was, the Inhumans worked really well in the Fantastic Four universe.
So maybe that's the thing. Is that what we need to bring F4 finally proper into the MCU and then start bringing those other elements?
See, the thing that I walked away with thinking that, damn, what I would have, the scene in the MCU that I would have loved to have seen, which is I can't see happening now, is that meeting of minds where you have, Tony Stark, Hank Pym, Bruce Banner, Reed Richards.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, those you see, when you have those four minds in a single universe like this, you kind of like you can imagine. Yes, it's like the creating, the portal to the negative zone, the everything else they managed to create, the amazing, and knowing that Tony Stark is dead, knowing that we're not going to have that scene with him and Reed, that it's if either one of them gets stuck, they would have called the other.
So then who's going to be the next big brain of the Marvel Universe? I know we have Professor Hulk, but are we going to get a new big brain?
Well, I think it's going to be Reed Richards.
Yeah, we also have Shuri, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. but I think you're also going to have Reed Richards.
Do you think he'll come through in a proper F4 movie or be introduced via another film? Hinted at?
I think they'll hint at it. I think what we'll see is in one of the upcoming movies, maybe even in Eternals, we may see Reed Richards or Ben Grimm or someone. That's, I think, how they're going to do it.
I hope we see these Eternals in that GOTG Volume 3.
I think they also going with the older Fantastic Four versus the Fantastic Four kids. I think they're going with an older Reed Richards.
Yeah, the ultimate Reed Richards has kind of disappeared. So the Fantastic Four book that came back, it is the bearded Reed Richards. It's definitely I love the lineup from the original, like the first issue of Fantastic Four, where the slightly older Reed Richards, Sue Storm, who's obviously younger than him, but her kid brother, who's clearly late teens, likes hot rods, fast cars. Have him young. Find an actor that is young who looks like he's Tom Holland's age.
Yeah.
That should be playing Human Torch.
Well, we got to get that film proper. Absolutely. And one thing that obviously we were missing, that I missed at least, in all this Infinity stuff, was one character that was actually very important to all of it. We didn't get to see him. Yeah, man. What happened to Adam? I was expecting to maybe see something happen, at least here in Endgame. And there was nothing. That's the only thing that kind of left me like, where's Adam? Are we ever going to get him?
Yeah, but for Adam Warlock, he needed the Fantastic Four. Remember, that's where he was created, in the Fantastic Four. And if you have the Fantastic Four, you can have the seeds sown for Adam Warlock.
But I think this, unless they're planning on returning Thanos sooner rather than later, to me, Warlock would have been the perfect. If it wasn't for the movie would have been so crammed already.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would have been great to have Adam Warlock being the one who took down Thanos and have Tony Stark left alive. But
I think that would have taken away from the original characters.
Oh, it would.
That's why I'm very fine that they didn't do it.
Yeah,
because he would have been like a Deus Machina. He would have just come in and solved their problem. And I don't think that's Adam Warlock. I think Adam Warlock is more or less a different version of the Silver Surfer.
Okay. Let's see.
Well, we need. The thing is, you couldn't just do that with Adam Warlock. You need to have Adam Warlock's story first.
Yeah, you got to have him.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can't just introduce him to then sacrifice him killing Thanos. It's like no one will know who he is. We need to have the Adam Warlock movie.
A standalone?
Well, no, they could start. I would like to see. I would like to see him make an appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah,
I think that's the best place, and I think he'd also work equally well in. They're talking about the fourth Thor movie, so I think that those two movies together could be a great place to introduce and flesh out the character.
I think what I would like to see what they are probably not going to do, but they introduce alternative timelines, so maybe that is a possibility. But have Adam Warlock on a different Earth, like he was originally in the early comics by Thomas and Jill Kane.
Right, but that was the counter Earth. That was the Earth on the other side of the sun too.
Right. And who's not to say he's in a different timeline? And maybe he's in the timeline where the young Captain America is in the 50s, and this is a different timeline. And we play that out. That would be interesting.
Yeah, but that's where he ended up. Remember, he started on our world as part of a scientific experiment. So it was in the Fantastic Four. He then went to Thor, and then later made the appearance in Marvel Premiere.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to actually have, take all of that, take everything that was done, and now refine it and make it work properly for the cinematic universe.
Yeah, I want to see a lot of that starring stuff, going forward in this next phase. I hope it's all cosmic. I want to see some crazy stuff. That's what I want to do. I want Marvel to go completely cosmic here for this last phase.
Well, I don't think it needs to, though. I don't think it needs to, though. I think, there's no reason why it has to be one story from going forward. Can we have two stories being told simultaneously? So can we have something that's more earthbound and something that's more cosmic based?
Well, Earthbound is going to be F4 because when we get Doom, it's going to be a wrap. But Doom's got to come too.
Doom,
that would be interesting.
So maybe
that would be interesting.
So maybe Doom could be the earthbound story and Galactus be the cosmic story.
Yeah, they're also preparing a Shang-Chi movie, as far as I know.
Because in the cosmic, you also run into Kang. I mean, there's so much possibility here. To see a proper Kang now that we have, alternative timelines and, it's getting.
And remember, Kang has history with not only the Fantastic Four, but Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a great way to bring him in. Exactly. We should get another Doctor Strange movie, another Earth-based one, if you will.
Well, I think maybe I wouldn't. That the Doctor Strange movie is going to be Nightmare.
Oh, Nightmare! Oh, that character. That's one of Peter David's favorites. I remember there was this one story, a Hope story. I mean, it was all cool. I was digging the story. Oh, it's just a dream. I hate when they do that. Stop with the crap. Let it be real. And Chris is having another wrestling match over there today.
Yeah, it sounds like he's rollerblading around his warehouse.
No, I just got a coffee from my warehouse. Yeah, but that first Doctor Strange story is with Nightmare. That is a fantastic story. That Ditko, that opening, that film noir opening is so fantastic.
And don't you love this little, talking on Strange that was seen on the rooftop with Professor Hulk was, trying to get that stone, and he kind of told her, well, he does this. He said he wouldn't do this willingly, and then she kind of said, wait a minute, Maybe this is a plan. I was very happy with that she trusted Professor.
Yeah. I would like to see. I'd love to see. We got that brief touch of in Infinity War where that interaction between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see that either a Doctor Strange movie or a Spider-Man movie. We have a proper team up with the two of them.
Well, that would be so much fun. I just want to, Doctor Strange could take a seat. I just want to see Spidey team up with the Cloak. With the cape, man. With that cape, man. Come on. I want to see Spidey wear the cape, and imagine that would be awesome. Let Doc sit down. I'll take him.
Hey, so here's something I want to bring up, and again, it goes back to one of the things I wanted to originally discuss today.
Mm-hmm.
So, opening weekend, they pretty much they nearly did $1 billion opening weekend globally for Avengers. The entire comic book industry, they took in one weekend what the entire industry makes in 1 year.
That is insane. I mean, look, it says here the opening weekend, which was just to start, $350 million in U.S. ticket sales only. Now, when we look at the ultimate worldwide figure, $1.2 billion. That's a B, capital B right there.
And they have already crossed 2 billion now.
Oh my
exactly.
God!
Yeah, they're gonna kick Avatar's butt.
I mean, that is insane. Damn sane the way that these movies are bringing this much capital. Wow.
Now last year, the entire comics industry, including digital, made $1.9 billion.
Wow. And this is doing basically in less than a month.
No, they did that in less than a weekend. In basically a weekend.
In a weekend. Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, as many people have said, it's like, Avengers makes $1.9, 1.2, $1.1 billion, and the actual Avengers comic, is it? What's the current sales? Is it like 60, 70,000, something like that?
Yeah, that's definitely not over 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to our previous conversations again. Like, what's up? I mean, what is Marvel doing? And so wrong?
But isn't it interesting if you want the same sales in comics as the Avengers did, you only need everybody who has just seen Avengers Endgame to buy 3 comics in a year. That's like $15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're not going to. They're not going to.
But no, but this goes back, right? So
I want to answer your question though about the volume of sales. So I get access to some information. Let's talk about March. So March sales for Avengers comic, all right, distribution 48,984.
Yeah,
unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
I mean, the highest sold comic that month was Detective Comics 1000, and that only sold 526,000 units.
Yeah, but that was a $10 book, right?
Yeah, that was a $10 book at that. I mean, if you want to go with a regular book, let's say Batman that month, 84,000.
See, here's what I will say to you, and this goes back to something that kind of leading off what Chris was last talking about, which is if you had everyone who'd seen Avengers Infinity, if they went out and bought 3 comics, like $15 worth of comics, you'd have that. Well, how about this? What if instead of producing a monthly Avengers comic, they did a really thick graphic novel that came out once a year that was a completely self-contained story that was still a sequential read. So it still read, it's connected to the previous volume and would lead into the next volume but you treated it like a Harry Potter book rather than just a big comic book. Do you think that the sales on that would then be significantly higher? Because now it became an event. Now it was like, oh, I love the Avengers. Oh, wow. Oh, hey, it's only 3 more months till the next big Avengers comic. And you buy it and you go, wow, this is fantastic. And that one comic is on the shelf all year round, not just a week.
But what's the price point? We got to talk price.
I would say $20. I would say $20.
Absolutely. Here's the rub, basically. You have so many great artists, John Cassaday, Alex Ross, and so on, who cannot do a monthly book at a use. But if you had them on a graphic novel like that, with a lead time of half a year or a year, you would get fantastic books. I don't know if you've seen that. They have been going on Twitter. Alex Ross did a pitch for a Fantastic Four book, not painted art, but pencil art. Incredible stuff. Look it up. It's amazing. These are concept designs. They look fantastic. If I was in charge of Marvel for a day, I would say, okay, do this as a graphic novel. We promote it. It's Alex Ross. It's a great writer. This is going to sell gangbusters. I'm convinced of it.
But my point is this, that so like Marvel has 60, 70 books that come out, monthly books, right?
90.
Yeah.
90.
Listen,
It's
I
90.
get some. Yeah, yep, he's right, because I get some weeks from Marvel, since we do work with them, and, in order to get the reviews. And there's some weeks where we get 25 issues, so it could be 90, it could be up to 100 sometimes. Insane.
And that is why when I find these comparisons, sales comparisons between Marvel and DC, who has more market share, more dollar share, is ridiculous. Because on average, Marvel puts out 90 books a month. That is not counting graphic novels, just counting floppies. DC usually puts out not more than 60, and still they're coming very close to Marvel these days. Marvel is clearly doing something very wrong.
All right, so here we go. So let's go back to the figures there, right? That month, Marvel had 40% of the overall share. However, DC's catching up. They were at 34%.
Yeah, now look at the number of books they put out.
Yep.
And Marvel put out 30% more books.
Yeah. And yet there's only the 6% difference between them in overall units of shares. But what's sad is when we go to the indie side of it, look at this. An Image falls third with a mere 9%.
Yeah.
So the big two are definitely the big two. Jeez.
But they've always been that's always been that way. The problem is, see, if you the industry is year on year, with the exception of maybe like 2017. The industry kind of creeps up a little bit. There's always a year on improvement of the previous year, financially, as a financial lump sum. But the thing that I've noticed is that there's a shift. So what we've seen is even in trades and graphic novels, the sales from comic book stores has dropped, but the sales in bookstores are going up. Floppy sales, digital sales are about the same. They've been fairly even over the last 5-6 years, round about sort of 100 million. But comic book stores are just right now, like you go back to like 2014, and comic book stores were doing twice the business of bookstores and channels like that, includes Amazon as well. now they're kind of, I would say probably within the next 2 years, they're going to be neck and neck, and probably bookstores will actually surpass comic book stores.
Oh, definitely. I've gone to a Barnes and Noble that's local to me, and then their little comic book section, if you will, is not little at all. A lot of stuff on the shelf.
Yeah,
you can stay there all day and pick stuff up, and and it's having that bookstore feeling so much more different than a comic shop.
But don't forget as well, also in the bookstores, that's where probably the majority of manga is sold over comic book stores. Comic book stores, on the whole, don't. Some do, but there's a lot of comic book stores that don't really support the sale of manga.
They don't.
They don't.
You're absolutely right.
And which is crazy. Actually, I think that's absolutely crazy. It's bizarre because manga has been a consistent high seller for like 20 years.
And that's why you have your female readers.
I love how you say that, because that's the difference between my two local comic shops. I'm not going to say which is which, but one does carry manga. The other doesn't. They'll order it for you if you request it, but you can't just walk in there and say, let me get the last, couple of books of X and X. It's not going to happen, as opposed to the other shop that does.
Yeah.
So, when you say, yes, some carry it, some don't. Barnes and Nobles definitely does, but they set it up in a way that, a manga fan will run into, a big two book or an image, book there. And hopefully,
well, they don't mix them. They don't mix them, which I like. I actually like the fact that while they might be on opposite sides of the aisle,
that's the way they do it. So you turn around, you got graphic novels. You turn around, you got the manga.
Exactly. Because I wouldn't want them to ever mix them up, because it's respect both the forms. They're both different.
Yeah, but I mean, you've been to Midtown Comics, right? You've been to Midtown Comics in New York. I mean, you see how they have, the comic house is one thing, but they have a wall dedicated to the manga.
They've always been great. Midtown Comics has always done a great job. But it's, again, I think that we're seeing it, but it's the higher. It's higher revenue of the higher ticket items, so collections, graphic novels, because the places where you can find kind of floppy comics is disappearing. It's even retailers they buy enough to literally like last the day. Like, if you go into a comic book shop on a Thursday and there's any comics left on the rack, those aren't the sort of the bigger selling books. All the bigger selling books just went the day before.
Oh yeah, very true. I hate going to the shop. Sometimes I always try to call in advance when I want, my floppy. But yeah, I've run into those circumstances where, like Spider-Gwen's first appearance. All right, I went with one of my friends. He's the biggest Spider fan. There was only one left. Sucked.
Yeah.
And that book the next day wound up, valuing for over $100 on eBay.
Yeah, it's just, that's just it. You see, so if you're someone who works and you can't get to the comic book store on Wednesday, so you go in on Saturday or Sunday,
you're done.
You're done. And as a fan, you're done, because you're either going to shift to digital, or you're just going to go, I'm done.
Yeah, because among us, Chris is the digital man, right? More.
Right, absolutely. Yep. I go digital. 100%, except for the omnibus editions.
See, and I'm a floppy man. I'd rather hold the book in my hand and not rely on electricity to read a book.
You buy the floppies?
Yes, I do. I have boxes here of stuff. I'm a collector as well, but I only buy the floppies I buy for the stuff that I truly enjoy, And sometimes I'll buy a book maybe to flip, just to pay off for the website stuff. But I only buy stuff I truly enjoy that I'm not going to let go. Spawn, Conan, because I've been collecting it since the Dark Horse stuff, and then obviously a little bit before then, Hillbilly from Albatross, stuff like that. Some of the Valiant titles. Those are things I just need them in my hand. I refuse to read digital on that.
Yeah, but I think it's also to do with accessibility, and also I'm not sure if you could get an 8 or 9-year-old interested in floppies. I like the graphic novel idea of Dave's. The more I think about it, because
you're right.
This is a value. You put something of value in there, and that would make it hardbound. Would make it a hardcover.
Well, the thing about the floppies in the past was they were cheap, easy to read, and you could buy them anywhere. They'd be in, barbershops, they'd be in your local
Newsstand.
pharmacy, newsstand, drugstore. They're everywhere. Like literally, like I mean, in New York, I remember
You trip
visiting New
over
York.
them.
Yeah, you couldn't go more than a block without finding someone with comics. The train stations everywhere.
Yeah, man. The corner on 14th Street, man. There's this dude right there, 14th and 6th. Great stuff. Cool guy. Knows his stuff.
And in Los Angeles as well, we saw, they had, again, all the newsstands in Los Angeles that have all since disappeared. There's very few left.
So sad.
It's really sad, and that's not just comics. That's just print generally.
Print, yeah.
And comics is comics has suffered as part of that, because even if your comics were being bought by your parents, if the parent no longer has a print magazine to buy, they're not going to be in a position to see the comics to pick up for the kid. They're not going to go and pick them up just for the kid. They're picking them up while they're buying a magazine for themselves.
Yeah, but that is the way the record industry has gone as well. I saw this interesting documentary about Tower Records, how they became huge and then they were basically gone because nobody was going to buy records anymore.
What a great documentary. I know what you're talking about. Great documentary on that Tower Records, The Rise and Fall. Amazing story. I mean, one of my friends got arrested there for shoplifting. So I have stories about that store too.
But that's the path that Borders went, and Borders Bookstore, and Barnes and Noble have been suffering. What's interesting is to see that the independent bookstore is having a resurgence. People still, like, after all of these Kindles and all of this, Comixology and everything else, people want print still.
They do. Yeah. They want to hold the product in their hand, again, that you don't have to plug in. It's accessible in your crib. You could just pick it up and dive right in. That's what I'm about. I love that. I mean, I'm not going to say digital sucks. It doesn't. I mean, there's obviously some stuff that I can't afford that if I have no choice, I will read it on digital. You know what I mean?
And I think the irony is it's the internet that drives this resurgence, I think, because I can go on Instagram and I can go on Twitter, more so on Instagram. And there's tons of accounts where people take pictures of themselves with their new books. And you see those people in a coffee house show a book and they post a picture of it. I'm not going to post a picture of my tablet with a book on it. That's not what I'm going to do. And so basically, if I want to do this, if I want to share in the fun, I need to buy the hard copy of a book. So basically, that's driving book sales, I think. And that's why we see resurgence there. And that's going back to this graphic novel idea of Dave's. If you put out an attractive graphic novel, people will share those on the internet, and this way you drive sales.
See, what if Marvel published just, instead of 90 comic books a month, they published 90 graphic novels a year, and each of those titles had one graphic novel, and they just split them up and they promoted them well, so that every single book each one of those books had an entire year to sell rather than just 3 hours.
Right.
So look at that. So if you average that you say, see, I like that. That's better because, you're going to have a constant product in front of the people. So at 90 books a year, 90 graphic novels, we're talking at least 7.5 books a month, which is doable.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that you would probably find more people would, like, knowing that they could buy an entire book and read it all and the whole story was there.
The whole event. Oh, my God.
They would talk about it more. You'd have big events around each of those books because you knew it was going to be the whole book, the whole story. It could still have a cliffhanger. It could still have something where, oh, no, they still haven't resolved about that. Yeah. Oh, my God, I'm going to have to wait another year for that. You see, what I think is missing is the anticipation of the next book. And I think I think it was Spider-Man was almost weekly, like each of the Spider-Man books.
Oh, my God.
It was just, don't do this. You are killing any love, any expectancy. If you don't have to wait for something, you're going to forget about it.
Do you know where your idea works perfectly, bro? And this actually, again, touches on the Avengers. They've done a couple of storylines that come out weekly. And then the story is about a 3-month, 4-month storyline with a weekly book. That means you're showing out $3 a week to have this book every week. So your idea there, like say, for example, Avengers No Road Home, with the one that now introduced, Conan into MCU proper. I mean, Marvel proper. Do that in one condensed book like you have, that one storyline, and then have stuff spin off of that, if anything. Yeah, that works perfectly for there.
And I also read these books, the books that I get on regularly now still, like a graphic novel. Because if I look at Tom King's Batman, that comes out twice a month, I'm not reading it when it comes out. I read it when I have 10 or 12 issues collected there, lying around basically on my reading list on my iPad. Because, they download more or less automatically. I never noticed when they arrive. And okay, now I can read 10 issues back to back. I'm not reading them when they come out.
Yeah. See, I do go to the store, buy my floppies monthly, but if there is a 4-issue event kind of happens within, those individual titles, I don't read them until I get all 4 issues.
See, now, sorry, Al. So, like, being the retailer amongst us, let me put something to you. What if every comic book store in America decided was to look at the writing on the wall and go, do you know what? Instead of being purely a comic book store, I'm going to be an independent bookstore that will focus. My main focus will be on comics and graphic novels. But I will expand to be an independent bookstore, which means I can carry Stephen King books. I can carry Neil Gaiman's novels. I'll have some of the classics. I'll have some great classic children's books. Because of the growth in the book channels, particularly what's particularly highlighted is the growth of children's graphic novels or books that are aimed at a younger audience.
Yeah.
Would you, if brick and mortar store, turning it into an independent store, but you'd still have your Silver Surfer in the window, or your big Superman in the window or something like that. But so people could come in, they knew you could get the comics and graphic novels, but they could also get children's books, and other novels.
Listen, that would work 150%, because now you're also expanding the community. Maybe people that weren't open to one thing prior, will be open to looking at other things.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's true. Unfortunately, a lot of comic shops are closing. There's some that are just in great locations and have a great community of geeks that support the shop, but not every shop is that lucky. So these shops need to grow and understand their community. Because again, a lot of these new comic book readers that are coming in are people that normally read, books, if you will. And now, because of films and TV shows, they get curious and want to go check out all the stuff. So yes, anything that could help build community is for me perfect. And adding that type of additional stuff to your store obviously will bring more customers, additional revenue to your shop. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And a lot of books that are bestsellers these days, or have been bestsellers for many years, are genre books anyway. So you have these horror books. Why not put the horror books next to your comic books?
And you also have prose superhero books anyway that are being done nowadays. You have a lot of prose novels out there.
Yeah, the Lois Lane books.
Yeah, and a lot of people, don't know about their existence because to a comic shop, that's not a comic. And that's sad. I mean, it's still within the community of comics. You're talking about a character that is in comics, but yet because of its style, of its look, I won't carry that. Ignorance.
But if you're getting new audience into your comic store, in your independent bookstore, what is a reader of a Stephen King book or any other book, prose book, going to pick up first? A floppy or a graphic novel?
Oh, they're
This way
definitely
you,
going to go for the
this way you build a sales channel for your graphic novels.
Absolutely. They're going to be all about the graphics when they go into those shops. The graphics is the avenue, like Dave has been saying. It is the avenue. Everybody, again, anticipation and all that. Sometimes book get delayed. Again, I can't. The only hard cover graphics that I buy are the Mark Millar ones because I can't do his floppies because, again, 6 issues is not 6 months. It could take almost a year and a half. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. But if you go back to Jim Starlin, that's where our discussion started, more or less. If you think of the first graphic novel Marvel put out, The Death of Captain Marvel, that is an amazing book that amazingly holds up well. And if you put that next to any prose book that comes out these days, this stands neck to neck with that. It's an amazing piece of work.
Yeah,
and you can put. I'm really surprised that Marvel doesn't put this book out again now, because with the popularity of Endgame and Thanos, put this book out.
They need to put out that whole line. If you remember that whole,
yeah, sure, the Captain Marvel, fantastic.
The Captain Marvel, but I'm saying that whole line of books where that graphic novel came from. It was a graphic novel line that they had.
Yeah,
right.
There were so many great mature stories there. You know what I mean?
Oh, there was the great X-Men one that Chris Claremont and
God Loves Man Kills. That's a fantastic one as well.
There's a lot of great stuff within that whole line, and I think See, again, and that goes back to the graphic novel idea. It's the avenue. It's the avenue.
But those graphic novels, I don't think were thick enough. They were.
That's a thing.
Yeah. For me, they're more. What's the word? The premiere book, is it? Prestige. It's more of a prestige format.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
but they called it a graphic because it had more pages than your standard floppy back then.
Yeah, you had a hardcover,
But it was
some of them had.
But I think that if you did a giant graphic novel, just one a year of the Avengers got one graphic novel a year, the Fantastic Four got one graphic novel a year, the X-Men got one graphic novel a year, and yes, you could do a Wolverine graphic novel as well. So there's no need to just fit him in that X-Men book, but you could have all of these, and then you could actually have so those are the big books. Those are going to be your $20 books, but then have a line of say $6 books that are the 48-page prestige format books that are, hey, we've got a Beta Ray Bill annual, and it's only 48 pages, and we've got Arthur Adams or Walt Simonson doing a Beta Ray Bill annual for the next 3 years.
Oh my God!
And at the end of that gets collected, and that does become a $20 book.
I like that as well. I wouldn't mind buying prestige formats. I miss those editions.
But doing them like the older annuals, it's a specialty, but it's just a one-off. But it's also something again that survives on the shelf. It's not just got a 1-day shelf life. It's got a 12 months shelf life.
I like this. I like this very much. Well, if Big Two's not going to listen, I think the International Comics Collective needs to start opening its own independent bookshop. It's showing them the what for. We'll be the Big Three.
See, I'm getting really tempted. I'm really tempted to get into retail now. I'm really.
But there's a reason why they're not listening, because think of the variant covers. They are dependent on selling the same comic 5 or 6 times.
But that's because the comics, the interiors of those comics aren't getting an audience, so they have to do the variant covers. It's I don't know if it's just lazy or it's just an unwillingness to try anything new, or they're incapable of change.
I think it's the last one. Incapable of change. The variant stuff drives me nuts. Oh my God! I don't care what cover I get. I only care about the inside, folks. But I hate seeing 10 covers of the same damn, 10 different covers of the same damn book. Oh, geez.
Well, see, as from my point of view, from my standpoint, I know I most of the artists that are doing variant covers and are doing covers that I like, they're always posting them on Facebook. So I'll just like, okay, I'm going to download that image. Don't need that comic, do I?
I was about to say the same thing. And sometimes in the digital edition, they include those anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the difference on digital too. You get a lot more. On the floppy, you got that one cover, you're done. But as Chris just mentioned, it's true. You get a digital copy. They're going to show you all the different covers that came out with it. So you get that little extra.
So they should, because it's no way are they justified in charging the same price for digital as they do for print.
Could you imagine, though, Chris, would you fall for that if they went that digital route, did the digital variants?
No, makes no sense.
Straight out.
And I think they're also missing an opportunity there, because basically not everybody is going to get these variants, and they only use the variants to force, quote unquote, the stores to up their orders, so they get this 1 in 1,000 variant.
Yeah.
Why not include all the variant covers in the same book? And you can have the regular priced one where it's only one cover, or you can have this $1 more expensive book where you have 5 different covers to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
More people would buy that. More people would buy that, because basically, I can buy a floppy and I pay 50 cents or $1 more and get this Alex Ross variant cover together with the John Cassidy variant cover in one book. I buy that, sure.
Yeah, but that means that Detective 1000 would have cost you like $20 because they had 37 variants. They're not going to give you 5 extra for $1 more.
Depends.
Look at the two, like the Action Comics 1000 and the Detective Comics 1000, and then compare them to the anniversary editions that were done years ago of Action Comics and Detective, where like Action Comics, you had the Howard Chaykin cover, the Batman Detective cover had the Bill Sienkiewicz. You had stories inside by Joe Kubert, Brian Bolland, Jim Steranko doing his Superman of the Future story, in Action. That, like, those were amazing comics, and now it's just a big fat comic. It's it's just, you don't have, there's like, they're not keepsakes like those older ones were, like, and as I would sooner they just dropped all the story. If they just did a book of, instead of having variant covers, like Detective 1000, it's going to be just a pin-up book of all the variants. I'd buy that over the comic.
Yeah, what happened to pin-up books? I don't see that too often anymore either. I mean, I think the last time I saw a pin-up book was like in the 90s, late 90s.
Well, I have to say, I was never a fan of the swimsuit books. I was like never a fan of those. But pin-up books, I remember Marvel Fanfare. There was always a portfolio in Marvel.
Oh,
Fanfare.
Yes, yeah, true.
Great. They were beautiful. I like Bill Sienkiewicz, Chris, Charles Vess. Beautiful stuff. Gorgeous.
Great looking premium books too, those Marvel Fanfares for the time.
Oh, Michael Golden, Craig Russell work. Jesus.
Yeah, P. Craig Russell. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Sandy Plunkett, who like just does not, like, he just hasn't done enough comics, and his Doctor Strange Spider-Man story with Scarlet Witch was just fantastic.
You see, you hear this, folks? We're missing this right now. to have that feeling again when you see something, you're like, oh my God. Very, very few and far in between, I would say, that we get that feeling nowadays, unfortunately. Well, but that idea with the graphic novel, though, that would definitely get my blood boiling again.
Yeah, and think about it. It's like, like you see, people want a monthly fix. So there are people who are going to buy, they'll buy the graphic novels and they'll read them straight away, and they'll go like, well, what do I read next? Well, they'll buy another graphic novel.
Yep. And that's $7.50 a month, based on your idea of maybe 90 a year max. Shit, you'll definitely. I mean, in 4 weeks, maybe 2 releases a week. Yeah, that's it. Done. But you go to the shop and you pick up 2 books. You're done.
Yeah, but imagine everyone going in and buying those 2 books, and then imagine going in regularly. Like, you can go into a comic book store any time in the year and buy them. Of course, you're going to want it. Of course, it's going to be, you're going to promote and market them like Avengers Endgame, because you want to be able to read the book before someone spoils the ending for you.
Yeah.
So you want to read that. You're going to buy that graphic novel and want to read it. But other people will just go, they'll buy it anytime that year. They might even buy it because, they go in and there's nothing else. I was thinking about getting that, but yeah, okay, well, I'm not buying anything else. Yeah, I'll buy it now. And there's always going to be somebody, because you're publishing them annually, there's always going to be someone who's going to discover the Avengers for the first time and go, wow, this is great. Have you got any more Avengers books? Yeah, sure. There's a line over here. Great. I'm going to go back. Okay, I've just discovered them. So I'm going to buy the previous 2 books. And then I'm going to come back the month after and buy the 2 books before that. There's, it's the collector thing. You'll always want to go back and buy.
Yeah,
it's also adapting the binge watching model to comics. Because basically what people nowadays are used to is, it's a new season of my favorite TV show. I can watch 12 episodes all at once. Think of Netflix. They drop a season of Daredevil. Well, not anymore, but it's 30 episodes. You can decide if you want to watch them all back to back or you want to wait a little bit. But there you get the whole story in one book. Versus, if you compare it to Game of Thrones, I mean, you can have the old TV model where you have every week an episode. 23 episodes, not every episode is great. Or you have 6 episodes a year of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones is the most watched television show in the world. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Except by me.
But I would say,
really? Wow.
But I would say the analogy, having comics, see, comparing comics to Netflix, maybe we should also be comparing them to books. So the more we compare like to like, comics are illustrated books.
Compared to Harry Potter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And can you imagine if J.K. Rowling had allowed 50 other writers to write Harry Potter books and there was 300 Harry Potter books out by now?
Jesus.
Would we actually give a shit? Would anybody give a shit about Harry Potter now?
Absolutely not.
No. It'd be like, well, which is canon? And if you tell me that all of those books are canon, I'm just not going to be interested because I don't want to read them all. I don't have to read them all.
Agreed. You know what that is? I think the ICC is going to get into business because there's a lot of great little ideas flowing here. And you got my mind like jumping right now, like Bram the Brain from Morgan's Oregon. Jesus.
Hey, we can open up 3 stores in 3 different countries right away.
Oh my God! Yeah, man, and we call it the International Comic Collective store. Come on over.
But we need the product for that, don't we?
But we can cherry pick. We can cherry pick the books.
Absolutely, and especially when it's an independent store. Yeah, you could cherry pick and do whatever you want. I mean, and even bring in some new talent. I mean, there's so many potentials with all this. Again, all about building community as well, and bringing these people to love this wonderful culture that we've grown up and enjoyed so much.
Yep,
I'm with it, man. I'm with it. All right, so. Before we end this episode here, just want to ask you guys, Chris, you first here. What was the moment in Endgame for you? The one that made you jump out your chair or made you choke up?
Well, having seen the movie 3 times now, I mean, the first time I saw it was, of course, the moment we already talked about. Cap picking up Mjolnir, that was really the shout-out moment. But the second time, the third time around, I especially like the scene when Ant-Man comes back and he's in the street with the kid on the bicycle. And he has no idea what's going on. And he talks to this kid and the kid turns around and drives away. That was really crossing so many genres for me there. This was like something I hadn't seen in a comic book movie at that point. And also not in a comic book. This was basically, the good guys have lost. And there's this one hero who returns. It was something like Planet of the Apes, and he has no idea what has happened here. And slowly he realizes, oh, we lost. That was a great moment.
Yeah. Great. What about you, Dave? What was your moment, whether emotional or geek out?
I was going to say, I've only seen it once still, and I plan to go and see it at least one more time in the theater. I got to say, I cried when Iron Man died, and just as I composed myself again, I bawled when we see like Steve Rogers appears on the bench, and he's like much older, and he decided to live his life, actually have a life. Those two bits. I mean, Natasha dying was something, but it was it was that history you have with these characters from youth, and you see them dying on and their stories coming to an end on screen. But Chris reminded me of there was a moment. It wasn't that scene that he talked about with Ant-Man. It was one shortly afterwards when he sees his daughter.
Yeah, that's an emotional scene.
Yeah. But it was the look on his face, the love, loss, love again, when he realizes that, yes, it's his daughter, but he also, there's that beat, and you can see it in his face, and Paul Rudd pulled this off great.
Yeah.
He realizes he's lost 5 years of her life.
His little girl ain't so little anymore.
That's an amazing scene. That's an amazing scene. Also, going the whole beat when he's on that wall and looking for her name and hoping her name is not there. Then he realizes his name is on the wall, and he realizes what that means to his daughter. This is powerful stuff.
Yeah, but knowing what she must have gone through, but just standing there, because time hasn't passed that long for him.
No, it's only been like an hour, right?
To suddenly come out and see your daughter has aged 5 years, and knowing that there's 5 years of her life you're not going to get back.
It's insane.
I mean, as
5 years is 1 hour of his.
Well, as a parent of two daughters, like my God, that was just like that. Just the only time, being a dad, I remember it was Interstellar, and I remember when the main character is leaving, and he's leaving his daughter behind. That crushed me. That was the most. That was that scene. Knowing if I had to go do something, knowing that I would probably never see my daughters again, that would completely crush me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a daddy of a little girl too, so I get you.
Yeah. I would also like to, on a separate topic, actually just give a quick call out to, in the research, thinking about this beforehand, and going through numbers and looking at some of the sites. A site that I always go to for, as more of a retailer site, really than sort of something that the fans normally go to, is ICV2, Milton Greep's website.
Oh, yeah.
So the numbers and analysis that he does, and also Heidi McDonald at Comics Beat.
Heidi's great. I like her website. Very journalistic website. Gets really into the business.
Yeah, she does. She has some really good articles and features and analysis on her site that she does often with Milton Greep, and in conjunction with Milton and ICV2. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give them a call out.
No, definitely well deserved. Shout out. ICV2.com, and the other one is comicsbeat.com. Check them out. Definitely worthy look-throughs.
Yeah, well, we had endorsements. I think that should be a segment in our podcast to have endorsements. I would like to endorse Comic Book Historians. It's a site I also made a tweet on my Twitter feed, but it's easy to find. YouTube Comic Book Historians, 3 words. They do an amazing job taking you through all these many years of comic book history, and they're simply fantastic. They have videos like 15 minutes long where they cover one topic, like Stan Lee and Steve Ditko creating the Marvel Universe together, and then later another video where they discuss the fallout between, and then who should get credit and when the credits appear first and stuff like that. And it's an amazingly well put together channel. They have like 40 videos. And they're really fantastic if you want to get some background on comic books and the creator side on things, or also the pulp influences and stuff like that, where it all came from, or the comic books Siegel and Schuster did after Superman, all that kind of stuff. You can find it there. Amazing stuff.
Oh, great. Definitely going to check them out. That's the stuff. But that's actually a good thing. Yeah, shout out these sites that actually, encourage, our wonderful geek culture in positive fashions, and just let you know what's going on in the industry. So yeah, good shouts here, guys. Really good shouts. Just so before we go, no one mentioned.
What was your song's Avengers moment?
Yeah, that my moment, Harry, and no one mentioned this when the two words were muttered. Avengers
just assemble.
Oh my God, that scene was for me hair-raising. To see all of our characters that we've seen in all of these movies to start popping up on screen like that. I mean, what a battle scene, right? Standing in front of Thanos like that. Oh, dude.
I think that Avengers Endgame was the least comic book movie we have ever seen. If you think about the first act especially. And in the third act, it was the most comic book movie we had never seen. It was really, they were doing stuff like Valkyrie on a horse and all that stuff together, Spider-Man and all that stuff together. I mean, that was a comic book double-page spreads come to life, or a triple-page spread like Sorenko used to do them.
Yep, and now you said it. That was my other favorite scene. Coming back to life. Our Infinity Gauntlet, that the Hulk did his thing. That was pretty cool. He brought him back, but that was a very short-lived, momentary victory. But that's when the big bag came.
Oh yeah, but that moment, that chase where they're trying to get the Infinity Gauntlet across the battlefield.
Yeah.
And they're passing it from one to another. That sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Giants need Black Panther because the way he moved on that field, holy shit!
Yeah. That was. I remember being in the theater I was in, when we saw T'Challa again, come out, and it was just the whole audience was like, yes.
Did you want to run onto the screen and just start running with them in the battle? Let me see me knock somebody out too. That was awesome. It was an amazing battle sequence, man. They went all out on that scene. So MCU, Russo's, geez, guys, amazing. This Endgame is now my new number one of all the MCU movies, moving Winter Soldier down to slot 2. I don't know. Can you guys say the same? Is this your new number one, or at least in your top 5 now?
It's in my top 4 in any case, and I will put it. My favorite 4 movies would be. I would probably still have Winter Soldier higher up because that was such a huge surprise, and that's such a tight movie. And it's such a completely reintroduction of the character to the MCU. So I would still have Winter Soldier on number 1. I would put Endgame on number 2, Infinity War on the 3rd place, and Civil War on the 4th place. Wow. And the first Iron Man movie would be the 5th.
And what about you, Dave? What is this the best, your number 1, or amongst your top 5?
Well, it's definitely amongst the top 5, and it's that emotional thing of I've just seen it and the impact it had. It's right there, it's fresh. So, but I think with time, what will happen is the sequence. I think if I had to pick 5, I think it'd probably be the first Avengers, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity and Endgame.
All right, there you go, folks. Check out all these amazing movies from the MCU. If you have not, get your binge on, because I know they are coming out with a 22 film set.
But I tell you though, I would love though. But the thing is, I would pick those 5 only because between them all, that kind of condenses the whole. You can kind of get the whole story there, the whole like Avengers.
Yeah.
But I would still want to have Guardians of the Galaxy and definitely Black Panther as well. So
there you go.
Black Panther was like a big favorite with me. If it was like, it's funny if you just said one film.
Yeah.
I might just pick Black Panther only because it was self-contained. It was like, I really love the story. I really love what they did. They honored everybody that did anything with Black Panther. Yeah. They built on like, the stuff that Jack Kirby did right from the get-go and his own run on Black Panther. But yeah, the Don McGregor, Billy Graham, it's okay. Like, Christopher Priest.
I got to mention this before we go. Are you guys watching the current Twilight Zone?
No, not yet.
Jordan Peele hosted.
I didn't even know that it started.
Oh, yeah, it started. It's 6 episodes in.
Doing a second season now.
There are 6 episodes in now. There's an episode there, because since you said Black Panther, where they actually, one of the parents brings the kid a Black Panther comic, but he goes, "Yeah, I got you the good one by Ta-Nehisi Coates." Me and my friend, we really looked at each other. It's like, he should have given him a Kirby Black Panther. Come on, give him an OG. Let him know that this character existed way before this movie was released, please.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I want people to understand. Black Panther was out for a while, a great character. Please, check out that old stuff too, man. I mean,
see, the thing is, look, Kirby was the one who said, like, not only am I going to create a black character, a black superhero, but I'm going to make him king. I'm going to make him fucking boss. It's like he's going to have, like, he's a king, but he's Tony Stark. It's like he's like. Yeah, man, they are living the life. They have everything that we wish we had. It's like this fantastic world. He built the family out. He created some weird stories. Yeah, he definitely did some weird Black Panther stories, but he created some really interesting and like stuff with Black, and did some really cool stuff with Black Panther. And then Don McGregor. Look at what Don McGregor did. So.
Yeah, shout out to both, man. A very strong, influential character. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. So with that, people, we're coming to a close. We almost hit the 2-hour mark here, fellas. We're gonna keep going. But with that, we're definitely gonna do a poll again to see what we discuss the next time. Unless we may go back and just keep. No, let's do a poll. We're gonna do a poll. And to figure out what we're going to do next. Guys, just let them know, where can they check Chris out again?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter. That's Chris_Buse. That's BUSE. And you can also find me on Instagram.
And what about you, Dave?
It's Dave Elliot everywhere. It's DEEVELLIOTT. That's my handle on Twitter, Instagram, DeviantArt.
Oh, you own it. It's a wrap, folks. You better find them. Check them out. Check out both Chris and Dave on social media. A lot of great stuff, interesting conversations. Make sure to visit ComicCrusaders.com, UndercoverCapes.com. I am Al Mega, and saying, buen dia. Adios.
Bye-bye.
Take care, and please share.
This is an official Undercover Capes podcast. Thank you for listening to the ICC and Undercover Capes. Make sure to visit our website, undercovercapes.com, and also visit the International Comics Collective on Twitter.